Hey guys, my name's Austin with Red Rock Real Estate and Stringham Real Estate Group. Today we're going to be talking about whether it makes sense for you to wait or buy a home as a first-time home buyer in late 2023. I'm going to be bringing I'm going to try to remove my bias as much as I can, obviously, because realtor's job is to sell houses. I'm going to just tell you what my current opinion is, try to give you a fair shake of the market, and we'll let you make the decision from there. So let's get started. An overview, reasons to buy I believe have to do with interest rates, some FHA incentives we have going on here in Utah, securing equity, and reasons why you should wait. We're going to be going over something briefly called the yield curve inversion, whether or not we're in an investor bubble, and buying at all-time highs. That's the reasons to wait. So let's get into each individual reason. I'm going to try to make this brief, to keep it brief, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay, reasons to buy right now. Here's a quick overview. There's never really a good or bad time to buy, and I say that with quotes because obviously there's better times to buy and better times to sell. However, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, timing the market is impossible in my opinion. And if it's your first house, I wouldn't, for me at least, my opinion, I wouldn't worry as much about it. I think the main thing is making sure the house fits your needs, the price is well within your budget, and you can look for deals in every market. And with new construction homes here in Utah, there are deals to be had that I believe are at a fair value. And it really all depends on your individual set of preferences and needs, whether it fits within your budget, and whether or not are ready to make that decision. So today's interest rate is at 7%. As you can see, historically, this isn't, we're here. As you can see, this isn't historically super high. We've just been used to extremely low rates for a long time. And it's kind of spoiled the home buyers out there, especially the investors, because they just got used to low rates. And the fact that the rates came up so quickly, that definitely has an effect on today's market. There's a lot of people out there that have rates secured at, between around 3%. And for them to sell their home and get into something new, they're going to be getting in at 7%. And to a generation that's used to low rates for such a long time, that's a hard jump to make for a lot of people. I completely understand that. But right now we're at 7%. Hopefully we chill here for a little while. If rates go down, that's going to definitely have an effect on pricing. And if rates go up, that's definitely going to have a possible effect on pricing, all depending on what's going on in the economy. Now, if rates go up, pricing could come down depending on everything that's happening. But if you're get in now and rates go higher, then you're going to be locked in at a better rate. Your pricing could come down by who knows how much. But if rates go down, I believe that's going to drive a big run on housing once again. There's going to be a lot of investors and first time home buyers looking to get in if the rates come down. The main thing is that with a bank and a money market fund, you can get about 5%, and the return here in St. George is sitting at about right the same. So, why would investors look to get into housing with lower liquidity if they can get into a money market fund at 5% and get those returns in a liquid, safe F8, FDIC insured account? And if rates come down, again, I do believe that will drive the prices up. And if you get in now, you're locking in your price of the home, but you're not locking in the price of the rate. You can always refinance in the future. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. You marry the price, but date the rate. So I think that's one good reason to get in now. And if rates go up, yeah, again, your pricing you might take a small haircut on your house, but you're locked in at a better rate, which might wash out. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what difference that's going to make in your net expenditures, but that those are just some things to consider with regards to the interest rate. Some of the incentives that are going on in Utah right now, is the Utah is offering a $20,000 interest-free loan for qualified first-time home buyers. The house has to be under $450,000 and it has to be a new construction home. So, you know, whether or not that's going to be available by the time you watch this video, I don't know, because they're only offering it to 2,400 first-time home buyers. So I actually can't find how much of the fund has been used so far, but that's some research I'll have to do in the future. But yeah, again, a lot of these new home builders um, are offering incentives. Now, closing costs covered, that might be an exaggeration. I should change that. But they will offer, I know DR Horton is offering 5.9% rate buy down as well as $6,000 worth of closing costs covered. And a lot of these new houses coming in around here, the big builders, they're targeting first time home buyers. So there's a lot of competition out there, and the first time home buyer is a little skeptical. So there's a lot of buyer incentives out there, maybe for some upgrades, for, like I said, closing costs and rate buy downs. They're competing for your money. So that gives you a bit of an edge right now. But yeah, those are some of the incentives being offered. And it's just another thing to consider right now. Will those be available later? Who knows? It depends on what happens in the market. If buying really starts to pick up, their incentives are probably going to go down. It all depends on supply and demand. And my last reason that I'm going over of buying now is you're securing equity now. We know that house prices go up over time. We know that if you buy now, you're securing your cost of housing now and it's going to stay the same. If you're a renter, rent also goes up over time. So you're not securing any equity in rent. And again, if you buy, you're securing your cost of housing and you're keeping the cost the same. And I think for me personally, like reason I love St. George is that it's one of the largest growing cities in the United States. I'll post that link down in the description to show you. But places like St. George, I believe, are just in the beginning. And that even if something is going to, like a recession is to happen in the near future, I believe long term, St. George is going to be an excellent place to buy your first home because I do believe it will outperform just because it is a beautiful, clean town. And there's other places in the United States like that too. I believe right now, a small city, if you have your job and your income set up, I believe small cities are a great place to invest. They're on the up and up. We saw what happened over 2020. People are leaving the big cities and going to smaller cities, smaller towns, and I do believe that trend will continue for the many years to come. So I believe, again, looking for a place like this in St. George is a great place to build your first home and start building a family. Now, here's the thing that I'm going to talk about that I don't think many real estate agents will talk about. I like to be a realist. I like to be a no nonsense person. And real estate at the end of the day is a sales job. You are pushing sales to collect a commission. But here's the thing, like, not everyone's ready to buy right now. And there are actually good reasons to wait. Now, those reasons are is housing is historically high. It's expensive. There's no doubt about it. Another thing, the yield curve inversion, which we'll get into in the next slide. The investor housing bubble, which I'm not going to cover so much, but I'm going to reference someone who covers it extremely well. And a bad economy. You hear this is more subjective, in my opinion, when just, from your normal everyday person, I don't see a booming economy. I see a slowing economy, an inflationary economy. And I don't believe that it's all roses and peaches like the mainstream media will have you believe. And like a lot of, frankly, real estate agents, my colleagues will have you believe. A lot of them are going to tell you it's a great time to buy. And you know what? That depends. It might be a great time to buy for you, but for the next person, it might not be. So you have to figure into account your individual position. Okay, here is something really important. This is the yield curve inversion. So this is the 10-year maturity minus the 2-year. So basically, this is just the rate of return that borrowers are willing to pay lenders. and with respect to the federal government. So right now, if you lend your money to the federal government, you're going to get a better return on shorter term bills versus if you lend out your money for longer term bonds. Historically, what this means when this happens is it's an indicator of a possible recession. When it goes back to normal after an inversion, that's typically when the recession starts. And we've been inverted for about 18 months now. And this is definitely something to pay attention to. I referenced George Gammon in the next slide. Definitely look up George Gammon and Rebel Capitalist YouTube channel. He does a great job going over this in a way that I can't. But yeah, this is something definitely to pay attention to, something that people talk about, but I don't think they give enough credence as to how much weight this should hold. Now, like I said before, George Gammon, he also is talking about like a possible housing bubble. He does an excellent job going over this. I will put his video in the link in the description. It's recent, just came out. Basically, he's talking about an Airbnb bubble. A lot of cities are regulating against Airbnbs, and a lot of people have invested Airbnbs and started jobs and careers out of it. And if you have an Airbnb that suddenly you're not allowed to rent it, or for whatever reason the demand falls on that Airbnb and you start to go negative on your equity, it might force you to sell if you took out a mortgage on it. And if that happens on a mass scale, that's going to open up a lot more inventory on our already restricted inventory. And that'll lead desperate owners to end up selling. So that's another note to keep in mind. Now, if housing goes down, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a few years to happen. That's why, again, I think the reasons to wait don't apply as much to a first-time home buyer. If you're an investor, 100%, I would not be buying right now as an investor. But as a first-time home buyer, you're already paying for the cost of living. If you can find a deal that makes sense for you, I don't think that this is as much of a big deal. You might take a haircut in the short term if a recession comes up, and that's why it comes down to getting your finances in check, having a good emergency fund, having a good down payment, making sure the payment is below a certain threshold, whatever you come to around. Dave Ramsey says 25% below of your take-home income, which to me makes sense. It's a good number, and it's just for a first-time home buyer, I don't think this is necessarily as important. However, I understand. My brother-in-law, he's been waiting a long time. He flipped his house in 2020, and now he's still waiting for the housing to come down. He flipped his house and had made a really nice profit on it, but now he's still waiting for the prices to come down. And you know what? You could be waiting for a long time, and then when they do come down, you might be scared to get in. It's different for everyone. For me, my personal bias is if I find a deal that I like, I'm going to get into my house. Because right now I'm in an apartment. And if I can find a good deal on a house where the monthly payment makes sense and I have the good down payment, a 15 to 20% down payment, and I have the emergency fund where I can make 6 to 12 months of payments without a job, that's going to make a lot more sense to me. So again, it's just getting your situation figured out and seeing if the home makes sense for you. And here is another chart. This is the S&P Case-Shiller Index National Home Price Average. We see right here is at a high of 184 down to 135. Houses went down 27%. If that were to happen again, let's just say you buy a $400,000 house and now it's worth 300. In the long term, if you took those prior steps, make sure the down payment's good, you have the emergency fund, the monthly payment is below your 25% threshold, is it really the end of the world? Obviously, it's gonna recover, barring some horrible catastrophic event. But if you want to wait, you might be waiting for a few years. As you can see here, it took roughly 5 years for the prices to come down. So they stair step down. They don't necessarily just drop like the stock market. So that's maybe if you want to wait for a better deal, I know George Gammon said this: wait for the yield curve to come back, see what happens, and then you might be able to pick up a better deal. But all of this, no one can predict the future. There's only probabilities, And if, like I said, and I'll say it again, if something makes sense for you with the parameters that we discussed, then I don't think there's a super good reason to wait. But again, guys, I'm a scummy real estate agent. Just kidding. I try not to be. Um, if it makes sense for you, go for it. If it doesn't make sense for you, that totally makes sense. If you guys want to talk about this, I'd really appreciate it if you reached out to me or just at least go to my website. It'll ask you for some information. Then you can browse the market here in the St. George area, Washington County area. And there's a lot of valuable information there. I'd really appreciate it if you guys reached out. And if you found this video useful in any way, give it a like. And if you have some critiques on this video, please give me a comment. I am not a genius. I'm trying to learn every day, but I want to give like a fair, balanced take on the market, and I want to be honest. I don't want to fake it till I make it. I want to keep getting better until I do it right. So again, I really appreciate you watching, and if you guys have anything to say, leave it in the comments, give it a like. If you would like to get more videos in the future, please subscribe, and I really appreciate it.